YouTube. Hello, everybody. Let me just make sure. This is just an impromptu. It's just going to be a Q&A. So just a quick Q&A session. I'm just going to check my microphone because I've not actually checked. Is that working? Yeah, I think we're all good. Right, happy days. Normally I have a chat with Ryan at the start of the show, and he will make sure each other's microphones on, all that sort of stuff. Hello. Yeah, this is literally just a QA chat. I've got nothing planned whatsoever. And Ryan and I don't normally get to the questions. So any questions you want to ask, chuck them downstairs and we'll have a chat about fish and corals. So let's have a look. What's going on? Loads of people in already. Great stuff. Yeah, and this is Critical Reef says, just checking YouTube for something to listen to while I do my weekly tests. This is a great surprise. I love doing the weekly tests to YouTube stuff now. So cool. Glad you are doing tests. East Coast Reefer in the house, fellow YouTuber. Right, East Coast. What have we got? Questions. Saw a Fu Manchu lionfish today. Wow, that's a stunning fish. They're quite small, right? They're one of the little ones. Yeah, I think Ryan likes them. Maybe not. 2 clownfish. Here we go. First question. Enzo Bruschini. 2 clownfish in a 5 gallon, 20 litres. Ooh, with good filtration and good water quality. Do you think it is okay? 5 gallons small. I think no, to be honest. I had 2 in a Fluval Evo, which was 13 gallons on paper, but actually after displacement, it was more like, what was it, about 40 litres. So about, hang on, what's that? 8 gallons? 10 gallons? 10 gallons. Just under 10 gallons after displacement. And that was fine, and they'd be okay in there, but that felt a bit tight to me. So 5 gallons, half the size, I'd probably only go inverse in that one. Maybe you could get away with a yellow clown goby or something really tiny, but I wouldn't go for 2 clownfish. That's too big. But I don't know. Have a look and see if you can find anyone on a forum who has had success for a long period of time. And the trouble is, you'd struggle to keep, say, good water quality. You struggle to keep it going well on a small tank like that. That little Pico tank I had, it was only 1 litre to be fair, but just everything was a nightmare on that. Salinity, temperature, everything was an absolute pain in the backside. So I'm going to say no. Alex, have you done your weekly water test? Have you been a good boy? I've done some tests on the main tank. I haven't tested the Cade, but I did do a 30% water change, and I was going to do that. But let me tell you what my results are. So this was 11th of August. Is that today? Yeah. So, So yesterday I did most of the stuff. I did salinity 36 parts per thousand. I'd like to get that down a bit. Phosphate 0.2, coming on all right. And nitrate 15.9, 16. And then today I tested calcium and magnesium. Calcium 420, magnesium 1380. So all pretty decent. I did buy I was going to say Symphilia. I think they're now called Australia today. That I'm a little bit nervous about. Ryan's always said that they're very tricky. It's a really nice coral, but we'll see. Dave Peterson, I have a question. New to the hobby, tank is 3 months old, going well, but nitrates are holding it around 6 and haven't budged at all. Is there a point in a water change of parameters on swinging? Yes, there is. So nitrate at 6 is great. That's fine, no problem. Roughly in the ballpark. What was mine? 16? Yeah, again, fine. What was my other tank? 6, yeah. So all fine. That's roughly the right level. But yeah, do water changes. Water change isn't just about getting rid of nitrate and phosphate. It's about getting rid of anything that might be building up. So 10% water changes every week without fail. And yeah, on a smaller tank as well. So on the Cade, I tend to do, I've got these massive brute trash cans. Actually, I'm just selling. But I do 33 litre water changes with them. And that tank is probably 100 litres, maybe a tiny bit more after displacement. So I probably end up doing 33 litres. So a third, 25%, something like that. Once a fortnight, I reckon I do on average. But always do water changes. They're just good for the system. Always. And actually Ryan is doing a couple of large water changes on his system. probably was going to do it this weekend. Maybe that's gone out the window because he's not feeling well. But just to kind of reset it basically and start again. And I never think that's a bad thing. A lot of people, I think we said last week, a lot of people, well, you'll get an ICP test, and I've just got an ICP test this week. And when it comes back, it'll tell you all these things are slightly out and all that sort of stuff. And it'll tell you to add a milliliter of this, a milliliter of that, and change all sorts of things. And then you go away and buy all these bottles, and you send off another ICP test, and you've spent 100 quid by the time you've put it right. Whereas if you spent 100 quid on water changes, and you'd spend half that, spend 50 quid on a bucket of salt, you could do a load of large water changes and reset it. So yeah, always do water changes, 10%. There are lots of people who have success without doing water changes, but that's probably in spite of, not because of. And if it's over the course of success over 6 months is not success. Success you want to see long-term results, years long. It's not that you can't run a tank without water changes. It's just so much better to do water changes. Devilio Dan. Hello, I'm actually new in reef keeping. Welcome to the hobby. In fact, this is my first saltwater tank. I have a 20-gallon standard with just inverts and 2 soft corals, GSP and zoas. Do you think I can add 2 LPS as well? If you're not got any fish in there, just 2 inverts, I'd get some fish in there. I don't know how old it is. I don't know if you're waiting for it to cycle or something. First fish, don't say, but I would want fish in there. But yeah, absolutely. Why not add LPS? The thing with LPS corals is that GSP and zoa is fine. The thing with LPS corals is that they will start to deplete the elements that are in your tank. So your calcium, your alkalinity, your magnesium, and all sorts of other things. So you'll need to start thinking about dosing and replacing those elements, maybe just large water changes. You'll need to start thinking about them straight away. But if you're testing every week, calcium, alkalinity, magnesium, salinity, and nitrate and phosphate, but at least calcium, alkalinity, magnesium, and salinity, you'll see the pattern of everything might be stable for a month, 6 months, and then you'll see the pattern of them slowly going down and dropping off over time, and then you'll get an idea of what you need to do. But yeah, absolutely, why not start with something quite hardy? Duncans are quite hardy. Duncans are a good one, and they close up if the water quality is rubbish, so they're a good one to give you an indication, and they're cheap as well. What else is good? Duncans and hammers, but Duncans are probably the best ones as a first LPS. Enzo Bruschini, I find it easy to keep the salinity and other parameters on a 5-gallon. Okay, I do have 2 young clowns in there, but I do plan on upgrading them in the future. Yeah, to be fair, if you're going to upgrade them, then that's fine. I often have. I had in my water box, which was 24 inches by 24 inches by 16, so not very big at all. I had what was the Tang Gold Rush Tang in there. That would have got far. They get massive, actually, really quite big. They're one of the smaller tanks, but they still get big over time. It was way too big for that tank, and I had one spot fox space, also way too big, but always planned on upgrading, so no problem. So maybe short term you'll be okay. Just if you're thinking about doing it long term, I guess it's a bad idea. David Hills, Everbuild HV Superglue is what I use, way cheaper. I think you might be talking to someone else. I might have missed a question already, which is impressive given there's been like 4. Devilio Dan. The 2 I'm thinking of are, this was you asking about LPS corals. Leptostraea and a branching hammer. Branching hammer, glad you've identified branching, not walling. Walling are a bit more likely to just completely perish. Leptostraea, whatever. So I've had one Leptostraea, did really well. I had a few salinity swings in that tank, and water quality wasn't always great, and it did well. I don't know if I'd say it's a particularly hardy one. I don't think I've got enough experience with it to tell you that, but yeah, why not give it a try? They're probably not too expensive either, so that's a good shout. Raugusta 17. Upgrading my 55-gallon to a 75 or 125. Nice, both 18 inches wide. Okay, does the shape of a 4-foot by 18-inch tank make more sense? Or is a 6-foot by 18-inch better despite being narrow for flow? 6 foot by 18 inches front to back just starts to look a bit weird. Even 4 foot by 18 inches, I think, looks a little bit unusual, especially if it's tall. It can just look a little bit odd. So 6 foot will look a bit more odd, I think. So I personally, just from an aesthetics point of view, would go for the 4 foot by 18 inch. And I would 18 inch. You didn't say the height. I'm presuming the height is at least 18 inches. I would personally go, the wider you can get front to the back, the better. There's no real reason not to go for the 6 foot. If you want the 6 foot, go for the 6 foot. It just might look a bit odd, but if you're okay with that, then fine. I'm just going to turn my fan down. What was I going to say on the other thing that I was just looking at there. Oh, hang on, let me stop the fan so it's pointing at me at least still. Yeah, so 6 foot by 8. Yeah, it just might look a bit odd, but despite being narrow for flow, yeah, flow's a little bit more difficult in a 6 foot by 18-inch tank because you want to crank the flow up, but if it's too high in a narrow tank, you might get a bit of sand movement. But and also if you go 6 foot, you might have thicker glass, and then that reduces your options for power heads. But if you've sorted that already, then fine, go for whatever you want. But I personally think that 6 foot by 18 inches would look a bit, wouldn't look right. Don't think that they would look in proportion. Nature in nano. I have a question. I have a hydroid jellyfish in my tank. Are they bad? Do you mean like what they call digitate hydroid, the little thing that looks like a little stringy thing with a little tiny balls on it? I think I saw one in my GSP actually. I did a few months ago. And I had one in my last tank as well, if you mean digitate hydroids. I don't think they're necessarily a good thing. There's nothing to aspire to, but the ones that I had didn't do any harm. They didn't spread. If it's the colonial hydroids, the little brown fluffy things, they can be a pain. And some people report they can spread loads. They're not very attractive and they can harm corals. Even with them, I had colonial hydroids years ago, and they were really easy to remove and they didn't seem to do any harm. But the little digitate hydroids, the little stringy type things, I don't think they're a problem. It might be a sign that you're if you're broadcast feeding things like Red Sea Reef Energy or amino acids, those sorts of things, then maybe that's a sign that you're overfeeding, but I wouldn't sweat it, to be honest. The tank is probably 3 to 4 months old and I struggle to keep my water clean too. Okay, water changes regularly is always the way to help for that, and using good quality water as well. So if you're buying water from your local fish shop, that's not necessarily a problem, but ask them what their TDS is. Some shops don't run TDS super low. They might run it at 50 or 100, and that's fine for some tanks. Might be fine for freshwater, I don't know, but it's not fine for saltwater tanks. So if you're using local fish shop water, check what their TDS is. If it's 0, happy days. If it's anything else, try to find somewhere else and maybe look at buying an RODI filter. They're really simple. People often call RODI filters RODI machines, but they're not machines. They have no moving parts. It's just a filter like a Brita water filter, just a fancy version. And they pay for themselves in no time. And they let you control the quality of your water. So they're an absolutely fantastic investment. But you can get, if you've got a decent local fish shop near you. I don't know if you're in the UK. If you're in the UK, tell me where you are, and I'll tell you if I know of a local fish shop near you that I would recommend going to. Any tips for getting a tamarin wrasse to eat frozen? Still turning its nose up and picking up my healthy pod stock. No, I had one yellowtail tamarin wrasse about 5 years ago, and I got it from another hobbyist who'd had it for a little while, nice and healthy, and it just withered and died in my tank. So no, try it on things like what's it called, mastic 40, I think it's called. Try that sort of stuff. Just a wide variety of food. You might find you chucking an absolute ton of food to get it eating. But no, I don't have any tips because I've never had any success with that, I'm afraid. I just go for as wide a variety as possible. Trevor Hillier, have you dealt with coral boring spionid worms? Coral boring spionid worms. Spionid worms are fine, I think. Spionid worms. Let me just have a look and make sure we're on the same page. Yeah, those little things are fine. I didn't know they were coral boring. They stick out of SPS with 2 antennae. Yeah. People that say they are benign, but they make the SPS look terrible. Same with vermitids. Vermitids are a bit more of a pain in the ass because they got this mucus, but they make your coral look awful, which is the worst thing. But I've got millions of spionid worms in my. They usually turn up in my sump. I don't think I've ever seen them on an acro, but they're harmless. Every now and then you might see 1 or 2. They're harmless though, so I wouldn't worry about it. But if you're bothered, get in there with a pair of tweezers and snap it off. And apologies to any spionid worms watching. Zell, when scaping New Drive Rock, Carib Sea, Is it okay to soak it in tap water with dechlorinator just to rinse off the debris? Let it dry and then put it in the tank, fill with RDI. Yeah, I wouldn't even use I wouldn't even use a dechlorinator, to be honest. I'd just chuck it in tap water. We get obsessed with using RDI in this hobby, and I still do. I rinse everything in RDI when it's not necessary, just because I've got basically an infinite supply. I've always got some around. So yeah, that's totally fine. The only thing with yeah, totally fine. Yeah, I just wouldn't leave it in there for weeks on end. But that's totally fine. I wouldn't sweat it. And if you just rinse it off after when you're done, as in dry it off, then all good, no problem. Oh yeah, hang on. Have you ever? Yeah, got you. Bish Bash Ash. Would you ever place the exact same coral in different places around the tank? I try not to. In fact, I went to buy a coral today. Really nice. It was from Aquatic Emporium. By the way, so that's where I got the Symphilia from, the Australophilia. They have got some absolutely banging LPS corals in at the moment. An absolute ton of livestock. So much really nice quality LPS. So if you're anywhere near Shepperton, which is West London, swing by and have a look, because they've got some awesome corals. In there, they had a coral that looked like something I have, which is called a top fuel for Vites. It looked ever so slightly different, but I talked to them and they said actually they think it's the same one. And I didn't buy it because I don't want the same coral in twice. And I had, in my last tank, you might remember, I had the Tropic Thunder. And I put it in one place in my tank, left it there for a couple of months, then decided I wasn't happy with it. I moved it somewhere else in the tank, and there was a little bit left behind, but I thought it doesn't matter, I'll get that later. And then I wasn't happy with the second place, so I moved it to a third place. Again, when I moved it, there was a tiny bit of Tropic Thunder left behind, but I thought it doesn't matter, I'll get that later. And then a year later, I hadn't bothered to remove the little bit that I left, and it had blown up, and it was crazy. And I hate I hate that. I don't like having two pieces of coral personally. If you like the look, then great, do it. But I don't like it. It just doesn't look right. It doesn't look. I just think it looks stupid. And I hated that in my tank, just having lots of lumps of Tropic Thunder. So no, I'm not a massive fan. If they're different colours, like if you've got 3 hammer corals that are all different, fine. But I wouldn't go with the same one. I just don't think it looks right. FYI, I think you have a fan blowing on your mic every now and then. Yeah, I think that probably got fixed when I turned that down. But I'm going to move that onto the floor just to be sure. It's hot here in the UK at the moment. As you know, because you're in the UK. You're talking to someone else. Enzo, I have algae running wild on the back glass, and I find that helps keeping the nitrates low. Yeah. Like an in-tank refugium. You are talking to each other, which is all good. My tank is fallow. Oh, velvet. That's bad. My rock flower, ML rubber. My rock flower anemone is getting huge and beginning to sting some of my corals. Easy to remove. No. A pain. So the only time I've managed to get a rock flower anemone off is when it's on the glass. And when it's on the glass, you can just kind of very gently and very slowly peel it off on a flat surface, and it comes off really easily then. But I've never even tried to get one off a rock, because they really are on there. They do grip on. So I think some people suggest putting an ice cube next to them and making them move, making them walk out of the way. And sometimes they might just release and be free floating in the water. So have a look at techniques for getting anemones to be removed, to remove anemones. But if you've got it on, if it's on a rock, you're going to struggle, I would guess. The Fierce Gaming Bros. I have a year-old 75-gallon, and I have 2 clownfish, bicolor angel, chromis, and hang on a second, 2 clownfish, bicolor angel, chromis, and a cardinal. I'm wanting to add 2 tangs. What tangs species should I add? 75-gallon. What's that? Oh god, 75 times 4, 300 litres, probably a 3-foot tank, something like that. 2 tangs in a small tank like that is a little bit much, but coal tangs, what are they called? Tomini tangs, the bristle-tooth tangs are probably good. I'm not much of a tang man, but so you might be better off asking someone else, but I would add something like a bristle-tooth tang. A gold rush tang, also known as a Tomini tang or Tomini. Are rock flower anemones good for beginner coral keepers? Probably, yeah. I find them pretty hardy. I think they're not the most bomb-proof animal in the world, but they're, as in things like mushrooms are. But rock flower anemones are pretty good. Yeah. I would probably have no problem in recommending them for beginners, and they look cool as well. Trouble with them is though, they can float around. You put them where you want them, and then they're like, no, don't want to be there, and they'll just detach, and you'll find them halfway across the tank. So they can be a little bit. They've got a mind of their own, basically. But they're good. They're cool. They're cool creatures. I've got a few in the Cade, and one or two in the Red Sea Reef at S850. Enzo, I came from the freshwater side of things, and I have a total of 11 aquariums. Man, you must do a lot of maintenance. And I love fish, so I will for sure upgrade the clowns. I want to get a small goby. Yeah, gobies are cool. Thank you for the advice. Thank you again. Cool. CJ Watson, what are my best options for adding tangs to a 120-gallon tank, and how many? You would probably want 120-gallon is decent size, 4 foot roughly, maybe even 5 foot. Tommy Tang again as before, and what's the other one? Any of the Zebrasoma tangs, because if you get Tommy Tangs, they just do this all day long, and the bristle-tooth tangs, they scrape against the rock all day long, and they get the really tiny stuff. Whereas something like a yellow tang, i.e. the Zebrasoma whatever. So a yellow tang is a Zebrasoma flavescens, but anything with Zebrasoma in it is that genus, same sort of thing. So purple tangs, gem tangs, what else? There's loads of Zebrasoma tangs. One of those as well, because they take on the bigger stuff, not just the small stuff. So they work really well as a team, because then you've got one to take the small stuff out and one to take the big stuff out. A live stream. Hello, Reefers. Hello. Eugenie, my chiller gives me electric shocks when I touch the water. Stray voltage. All fish and corals going the same, like before the chiller, should I care? Yeah, that does sound like stray voltage. So I'm no expert on that at all. But yeah, you should care, absolutely. If it's not, sometimes you might have like an exposed wound or whatever, and when you touch it, it just gives you a bit of saltwater sting. But if it's definitely an electric shock, you absolutely should care. And you should that's a safety issue as much as anything. So check if it's definitely your chiller, take that offline and see if you can get it fixed. I don't know. But if not, then just try to identify which piece of equipment it is. Stray voltage. Look up stray voltage. I've never had to deal with it, but it is not good. Right, and you say you mean that you have difficulty keeping your water too clean. You can't get nitrates and phosphates. Yeah, so I dose nitrates and phosphates on my tanks sometimes, because you don't want them at zero. But I don't like having to do that, if I'm honest. You're in Leicester. I used to live in Leicester. I lived in Leicester for about 10 years. I lived on Narborough Road, and then not Enderby. Where was it? Thorpe Astley. Was it Thorpe Astley? Yeah, it was. I went to uni there. Good place. Any shops? There used to be a place called, was it Dream Reef? There was one shop that, and I wasn't into reef tanks when I lived in Leicester, so I don't know. There was one place there. I can't remember what it's called. I feel like Dream Reef. Reef Aquatics, Leicester. Let's have a look. Clearwater, Dream Reef. Yeah, Dream Reef. I don't know if that place is still going. It was years ago I went. But no, so I don't actually know anywhere. But there's a place called Clearwater Aquatics, according to Google. Dream Reef, as well as nearby. Scraptoft. Cool. Hamilton. Yeah, okay. And then there's Marine Fish and Chip Shop that's coming up on Google as well. So check out those places. They're East Leicester. Tell me where you are in Leicester as well. I'm interested to know. What else is going on? What are your stock plans for the new tank, fish stock, reef stock? So I'm a little bit apprehensive about adding fish to the new tank. Obviously, the Cade is pretty much done. I'm going to swap out the 2 clownfish for 2 pink skunk clownfish. But the main tank, I'm a little bit apprehensive because I've got fish that I've had for years in there now. If I add something else, I'm introducing a risk of fish disease. So I've been a bit cautious about that so far. But I've got a few that I'd like to add. A jawfish. I'd like a yellow-headed jawfish. I'd like a yellow wrasse. I would quite like a pair of candy. What are they called? Candy pipefish, I think they're called. But I already have one blue striped pipefish, orange striped pipefish, and I'm not sure how they'll mix. So those are the fish I've got in mind. But I don't really know. I do want more in there because it's a 6-foot tank, and I've only got 10 or 15 fish in there. So I've definitely got more space for a good few more. But we'll see. I don't really know yet. I don't know. I would like a Scarus koi, but I think that's potentially a bad idea because you might scrape at some of my corals. What else? Okay. Alex said hello in the shop yesterday. Don't know if you heard me or not. What shop? What shop was I in yesterday? I don't know. So I have, by the way, I have resting fuck off face. Okay, so if you see me in the shop, sometimes I might look really bloody miserable. That's just how I look. That's just my face when I'm walking around. So if I look a bit grumpy, I'm probably not grumpy. I'm probably just deep in thought. And if you say hello, I'll snap out of it instantly, and I'll get rid of my resting face. I don't remember you. What shop was it? Tell me what shop it was. Probably Reef Keeper, but I was in a few shops. But if people say hello to me, I say hello. Yeah, fix me and change it. Cheers, Steve. Any tips on stopping algae growing on my zoas? Only 2 of my frags keep getting algae growing on them, and I use a turkey bait to clear it off. It keeps coming back. You really need to get something to eat it. So if your water quality is decent and you've got loads of cleanup crew, you should be fine. If either of those are off, sort those out. But I don't know how big your tank is. If you could put a coral eating fish, an algae eating fish in there, like a foxface or something, that'd be great. Otherwise, an urchin is great. Snails, what they call, one of my favourite snails, the blackfoot trocus, and hermits, all that sort of stuff. What else have we got? Norfolk Reefer. We'll be looking to get a doser for my DD1200. Currently manually dosing. I know you've tried many. What's the best for the money options? Best doser. So I've never tried the Jekod ones, Jabal dosers, and they generally do good stuff. So I'd be interested to see what they're like, but I've never tried them. I really like the Red Sea one that I have at the moment. But I've never tried the DD8, what's it called? DDP4 Pro, I think it is, or DDP4. They look good as well. They're all Kamoa, basically, all Kamoa heads. And the DD one is a bit cheaper than the Red Sea one. Red Sea one's quite expensive. I have the, what other dosing pumps have I got? I've got Reef Factory dosing pumps. They're fine. Nothing wrong with them. They're relatively expensive, I think. I don't think they're necessarily the best value. The Red Sea one, again, is good, but 4-head dosing pump, I think they're 300 plus quid. Dosing pumps are expensive nowadays. I've got an Ecotech Versa. They're very good. I don't like the way they dose though. I like, because it's the way I've always done it, I like them to dose every hour and split it up like that. Whereas the Ecotech Versa, it will dose it over the course of 7 hours or whatever. And it's probably better because it's smoother. I just don't like it because I'm not used to it. But they're very, very good for Kalkwasser. What else have I got? I think those are the only ones I've got. But the DD, I'd look at the DD P4 because they're a lot more affordable than the others. The app is probably fine, I would assume. It's good to have an app that's Wi-Fi for doses, though, because there are times when you might need to adjust your dosing when you're at work, especially if you've got an automatic alkalinity tester, or if you're on holiday, that sort of thing. So, yeah, I don't know. I'll probably go with the DD one. But if you're asking what my favourite one is, of the ones I've got, the Red Sea one is the best. Although even with that, the software is a tiny bit fiddly, but it's fine. So I thought there was no live. Yeah, last minute decision. I got back. I went to the cinema today. We saw Twisters, terrible film, and I got back and just thought, you know what, sod it, let's have a chat. But it's hot in here. What time is it? It's 9 o'clock and it's red hot. We'll be looking to get a DD. Yeah, Norfolk Reefer. Is that what you were just saying? Oh no. Sorry, DD12. That's your tank. EIY Kumar. I was thinking about adding Reef Nutrition, Tiger Pods, and Apex Pods. Apex pods are much smaller in size. Any chance of the bigger pods eating the smaller ones? I also have amphipods already in the tank. Yeah, potentially. I'm not completely convinced that that adding copepods has as much of an effect as you might think, because I don't know. I never see them multiply. I've done it several times where I've put them in the tank at the start, put quite a lot in, and you never see them again. And that's because they hide under the rock and they live in the sand and they live out of the way. But I didn't ever actually see that. I never got the impression. It's one of those things that you just have to trust that it's working. Prestige actually had a ton of wildlife like that. But I think it was mainly amphipods. But yeah, I think they do eat each other in theory, but I wouldn't worry about it. More varieties is better. More diversity is better. So that's what I would go for. Kettering Aquatics you've got as a recommendation. Oh, actually, Reef Keeper Rugby is not a million miles from Leicester, to be fair. Is there any cleanup crew safe with a Picasso trigger? Never had a Picasso trigger, but I think they're the big old nasty ones, aren't they? Picasso. They're like the creamy ones with Humu? No. Renicanthus, whatever. I don't know. Never kept one, but they look. If I was a hermit crab or a snail, I would not want to live in the same tank as a Picasso trigger. Dream Reef, yeah, that's one. Any more leopards? I have a peacock false leopard and now on the hunt for the same as yours now. Search macropharyngodon, PHARGODON, RAS, and that's the genus that you want to look at. But there's a few of them. They're fussy though, fiddly little things. So I visited both of you talking about that place. Hi Alex. Reef reflection auto paint correction Sal. Hi Alex, just wanted to ask, do you still cycle your tanks using Colony as shown in one of your previous vids a couple of years back? So I haven't used ATM Colony on my last few tanks, I don't think, but basically any of the products I'm sure there are all differences in I don't know, concentration or the type of bacteria, I don't know, whatever. But I use bottled bacteria. I don't really mind which one I go for. Fritz Turbo Star, I think, is the popular one at the moment. So I always use that. I put in a bottle of bacteria, whatever it is, whether it's Red Sea, ATM, whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. I like to put in a bottle of that, but I also like to put in some live rock from an established tank, either from your local fish shop or from your own tank if you've got one, or from a fellow hobbyist, because then that's already seeded. And I really like doing that. And that's worked really well for me for quite a while, to be fair. Siston, near Hamilton. Yeah. Thermiston, etc. Yeah. I know exactly where. Syston, sorry. We're having less to chat. Astorina starfish. Yeah, Astorinas. Buy a coral off me and it'll have an Astorina on it. So then you'll be happy. Do you know if the Red Sea 4-part dosing system is good? I'm thinking about getting it. So I used it very briefly, but I stopped using it because it wasn't right for my setup. Although I think I'm likely to go back to it at some point. I'm going to see if I can turn my fan up a little bit without affecting the microphone because it's just so warm here. So I stopped using it because when I started using it, my parameters were all over the place. Calcium was 350, magnesium, can't remember what it was, but it was in the toilet, and my alkalinity was about right. And because the whole point of the Red Sea, what's it called? Reef Care, I think it is. The whole point of it is all the bottles are in the right concentrations, so they go down at the exact same rate, so they run out at the same time, and then you don't have to replace one bottle each time. You replace them all together. And because I wasn't dosing any alkalinity, I was dosing a load of calcium and an absolute ton of I think just a ton of calcium magnesium. It was all over the place, so it didn't make any sense. So I ended up with empty bottles all around except for the alkalinity, which was full. So I stopped using it, got all my parameters back to roughly where they should be, and then I'm going to probably start using it again at some point, but haven't got around to it at the moment. So if your alkalinity, nitrate, alkalinity, calcium, and magnesium are at the correct levels, so 1350-ish for magnesium, 420-ish to 440 for calcium, and I don't know, 8 for alkalinity, then fine, have a look at it. But I've not really got any experience with it. I used it for about 2 months and then I stopped. I am at some point going to get, there's a guy from Red Sea who's like their chief scientist, and he wants to do a live stream with me. So I'll do it at some point on a Saturday probably. And I'll ask him loads of questions about it and he'll explain everything. So look out for that. And anybody else as well, if you want to know about that, I'll post at the time, but I'll want questions. The whole point of doing it as a live stream is that you guys can ask questions as well. So that will come at some point in the future. I don't know when, but come back when I've done that. Burbage. Yeah. Aren't DD doses basically Jecod? I think they're Kamoa. I think most doses are Kamoa. Are there any algae-eating fish I can put in a 20 gallon? No, probably not. I mean, if you were going to 5 fish, that's quite a lot, especially with the Tang as well. Probably not, to be honest. If you were, no, No, I can't even say if you're going to upgrade in 2 months' time. No, there isn't. You put an urchin in, blue tuxedo urchin or a Halloween urchin. They're really cool and they're brilliant with algae. But don't put a tang in there. The internet will go crazy as well if you do that. What's your thoughts on Trident products? Have you been considering picking up the Trident Apex system? So I've never had anything Neptune. I've thought about it from time to time. When I looked at, I bought an alkalinity checker years ago. I ended up going with the GHL one, and I looked at everything. But I don't know. It's the sort of thing that everybody says, oh, they're fantastic. It's not too complicated. You'd love it, but I don't know. It looks like something you need a lot of time to get into, and I'm just not that into it. So I don't know. You're better off asking someone who uses it. But my impression with Trident stuff is that, so with GHL, their hardware is very good and their software is not so good, and it's probably the other way around with Neptune. That's like a broad overview. If you go looking, that's roughly what most people say. But no, I've not had any experience with it. And it's just quite expensive as well. It's expensive and it would take a lot of time to get used to it. So I'm not massively keen on it. And I've never felt the need to. I have something that monitors and controls my temperature and will tell me if temperature is a problem. And I've got things that will do the same for alkalinity. So that's all I kind of want. But yeah, there's loads of people who've got them and love that sort of stuff. I watched your expensive Lord Gritch guy. I watched your expensive fish vid and you gave a shop in Winchester a shout out, so I drove up there and it's closed. Yeah, it's been closed for a couple of years now, I'm afraid. Where else is near there? There's a couple in Southampton. There's the Nature Collective. It used to be called Aqua Jardin. I think it's called the Nature Collective now. And then there's Maidenhead, Southampton, which is all right. And that's probably it in Southampton. But you're not a million miles away from... you're quite far from Reef Keeper Moss End, which is really good. But yeah, that place is dead now. I'm afraid it shut down about 3 or 4 years ago. Sorry. Hi, Alex. On the Rob. I hope you're well. Do you feed your corals? No, not generally. Occasionally, like I have intentions of feeding my corals sometimes. For a start, if you've got shrimp in your tank, forget it. It's a pain in the ass because the shrimp will come across and eat them. So whenever I've tried to feed my scullies, which I do occasionally, try to feed them pellets, the shrimp come over and nick them. So that's really annoying. I sometimes broadcast feed Red Sea Reef Energy, but it's just occasional. I go through spells when I won't use it for 6 months, and then I'll buy a bottle, use it over the course of 2 months, and then I won't buy it again for 6 months. But no, I don't tend to feed corals. I don't really like broadcast feeding because you're then feeding everything potentially in the tank. So if you've got Aptasia, you're feeding Aptasia, and you're soiling your water. And I don't like target feeding because it's a pain in the ass and it takes too much time. But when I do actually, to be fair, I do like target feeding scullies. But you don't really need to generally. Worldwide Corals always say that's like the next thing to get your tank to the next level, but only when you've nailed everything else. So if you haven't nailed everything else, and I probably more or less there, but maybe not even there yet, then don't bother personally would be my approach. Danny's Aquarium's in the house. Hello, Danny. What else is going on? Wharf Aquatics. Yeah, I've heard of that place as well. What's the best cheap and reliable return pump for a 30-gallon all-in-one? It'll be a Jecod, 30 gallons, 120 litres. So I was using, that's roughly the size of the Cade. Until very recently, I was using a Jecod MDC 5000. They're fantastic. And I had a 5,000 because I think I ran it at about 50%. 5,000 litres per hour is quite a lot for a tank that size, but you can turn it down. I like to have my return pumps with a reasonable amount of flow anyway, reasonable amount of turnover. It keeps the sump moving a little bit better. But any Jecod, let's have a look at fastlight.co.uk. If you're in the UK and you haven't used fastlight.co.uk, that's a really good place for various things, in particular Jecods. Jecod. But the Jecods, you can never quite tell what differences there are with because they come up with all different names, SWC, MDC, all these sorts of things. So if you want a 3,500 litre per hour Jecod MDC 3,500, 94 quid. The 5,000 is 112 quid. That's what I'd go for. They're really, really good. They're very, very quiet. They've got a wicked little control box that's got a feed mode on it. It's got up and down. That's what you want. Happy days. They're really good. Jecod MDC range is Wi-Fi as well, although I could never get it to connect to Wi-Fi. But You don't need Wi-Fi for a return pump. So anything Jecod is generally good. The only thing is some of the Jecod stuff, I find some of the older stuff in particular is noisy. Some of the newer stuff is very quiet, and the sine wave stuff is usually quiet, but not always. And weirdly, so there was a, what was it? I think the DCP 1200 was noisy, but the DCP 2000 was quiet. So every now and then there are little quirks like that. But anything Jecod, and if you want a straight answer, the MDC 5000 is what I would go for. Very, very good. They're just brilliant. You can't beat them. Reef royalty in the chat. Yeah, Dan the man. East Coast Reefer. My magnesium is stuck at 1500. My calcium is stuck at 500, not dropping since I went Red Sea Coral Pro Salt. Is 1500 too high for mag? I've never had it that high, but I don't think it's necessarily the end of the world. But I don't know if you're dosing. But I mean, Red Sea Coral Pro, I don't know what the levels are of that stuff, but if it's too high, go back to a lower parameter salt, go back to Red Sea Blue Bucket or Tropic Marine Pro or whatever. Hang on, chat has just shifted. I can't read your name. I think that might be deliberate. I'm thinking of buying a new skimmer. Do you have the Deltec 600i? No, I don't. And what would you suggest for my Nuvo 75 INT? Presume that's 75 gallons. Yeah, Deltec 600i would be good. Build quality is awful on the Deltecs, on the 600i, 400i, and 1000i range. Really cheap, really thin plastics. And one of the bits did break on mine, one of the nozzle twisters, but you can buy a replacement one. But as long as you don't care about build quality, and it doesn't really matter for a skimmer, it's as good as it needs to be, then they are really good. I think they're quite pricey for what you get. I don't think they're great value for money, but the Deltec 600i is a really, really good skimmer, to be fair. What else would I recommend? I don't know. I think probably that's the only one I've used for quite a while. Ryan always likes the Nios range, so maybe the smaller one, the 120. That might be a bit big, to be fair. I would go with the Deltec. I just think they're really good. I like them a lot, and they're quiet. Does increasing magnesium? Hang on. Does increasing alkalinity and magnesium help drop calcium levels? No, not as far as I'm aware. Never heard that. Ammonia dosing. Have you tried it? No. I hate this every now and then. So ammonia. So corals need ammonia, but we're talking tiny levels. And anything that is potentially very harmful for a tank, it sounds like a terrible idea. Why would you dose ammonia? Because if you accidentally overdose it, you'll kill all your fish. If you can find me someone who's experienced and has an awesome tank and who's been doing the hobby for 10 years and they dose ammonia, cool, knock yourself out. If you can't, don't do it. If you look at someone like Coral Euphoria, Abe, he doesn't piss around with stuff like ammonia dosing, that sort of stuff. He just does the basics. So no, I don't like things like that. I don't see the benefit because fish produce ammonia anyway. So no, don't like that. Just stick with what's tried and trusted. Frozen mysis versus freeze-dried mysis. Any difference in quality? Freeze-dried mysis, is that the flash-dried stuff like RS mysis, PE mysis? I don't like the stuff. I like the stuff that comes in blister packs because then you can pop it off and you get a cube at a time. And the stuff that comes in the blister, I think the freeze-dried stuff is in the massive slabs, and then they're a pain in the ass because you have to chop them up when you get them, and then you never get the same sizes, and I just don't like them. They're more difficult. Any difference in quality and effect on nutrients? I mean, I've been feeding frozen mysis for years. And it's good stuff. So I don't know. You can try them both. I didn't notice a difference in either. I think I think the freeze-dried stuff is better because they literally freeze it the second they catch it, so it retains all the nutrients on it. It's like sweet corn in a can. But I wouldn't sweat it too much. Frozen mysis in blister packs is good shiz. What's the best way to get rid of diatoms? I think that's how you spell it. It's an A at the start instead of that first O. But yeah, clean up crew. It'll burn itself off. You might want to check your RADI water or your source water, whatever you're using to mix up new salt water or fresh water for your top off, because that can have silicates in it, and silicates will feed diatoms. But if you've just got a normal tank, just leave it, it'll burn itself off in time generally. It's been going ages, get more cleanup crew. What they called conches are excellent at eating diatoms, but loads of cleanup crews do. Fast Light was the website. Fastlight.co.uk. I've just put it in the chat. No relationship with them. I don't get a commission. They sell loads. It's where I buy all my Jecod power heads and return pumps, and they've got all sorts of stuff on there. They're really good for plumbing fixtures as well. So if you need a weird 45-degree angle or something, they're great for that. But they've got loads of stuff on there. Isn't Fast Line? No, Fast Light. Fast Light. It's not Superbikes. I've never heard of Fast Line, to be fair. 470, presume that's calcium. Can you clean Cheeto if you get it from a friend? No, I'm never. People get funny about Cheeto. I think BRS talked about that a lot, didn't they? Ryan talked about that's the place that people get Aptasia from. I wouldn't be. Cheeto, I'd be fine with it. I'd just chuck it in personally. If it's covered in Aptasia, then maybe you could turn your nose up. But no, I mean, I would have no problem buying or getting Cheeto from a friend. I've given stuff away before. People who sell Cheeto, no, that's not okay. It just grows and you throw it away, so you should get rid of it. But no, can you clean it? I've never tried to, but I wouldn't sweat it too much. I'd be surprised if you could remove whatever you're trying to get off it, unless you were there for like an hour with a microscope and a scrubbing brush or something. It's just not worth the hassle. 40 minutes drive from Reef Keeper Rugby. Going to check them out this weekend. I'm excited. Cool. Jonathan Reich. Is a 29-gallon sump too small for a 210-gallon reef tank? I saw the shop's 300 sump, and I think the water was like 23 gallons. 120. No, that sounds all right to me. 10%. It might, to be honest, with size, the sumps, the bigger the better, because you've got more space for more filtration. So a 210-gallon reef tank is a decent size, probably slightly bigger than my tank. And so you want a big skimmer, you might want a big phosphate reactor, you might want a filter roller. So the more space, the better. But I can't picture what a 23-gallon would be in terms of physical dimensions, measurements. But if it's smaller, then you're more restricted on what size equipment you can put in. But that doesn't sound tiny to me, but I can't picture it in my head. Kane Chand, I recently, because give me dimensions, talk inches or centimeters. I recently received my first ever ICP results back, Reef's Elements. Most things are fine, but a few things are lower than what is recommended by the ICP. How do I know what's important to dose? I don't use ICP tests generally for tweaking what's it called, the elements, but you can. There are consultation services that will tell you, ICP consultations that will tell you what to do. I was going to say post on a forum, but I don't know. I wouldn't sweat it too much, and if it's only a couple of little things, if it's things like iodine, you'll put a drop of iodine in, and it'll be fine. And then it'll be back down to zero again a week later or a day later or whatever. But there's certain things like that. You don't want to overdose anything really, but certain things like iodine, you can really easy to overdose. So I personally don't go pixel peeping with ICP tests. So maybe you're better off asking on an ICP forum or something like that, but I don't tend to do that. And sometimes it will recommend dosing copper, which is like the ammonia dosing thing earlier. There's just no way I'd do that. Corals do need that, but there's just no way I'd be dosing it because it's too big a risk. But tell us in the chat what has come in as low. If it's weird stuff like cobalt or whatever, it's just no way I'd bother. If it's things like strontium or potassium or iodine, manganese, those sorts of things, I wouldn't necessarily say don't do it. But tell us what you've got missing. Tyler Cornett. I went back to old school, just water changes and skimming, and my tank has never looked better. I was doing way too much tweaking with pH and nutrients. Yeah, old school is the way. We figured out how to keep fish and corals 20 years ago, the hardest corals in the hobby, SPS corals, aquarids, 20 years ago. So follow what people did 20 years ago. There's, of course, advancements in understandings and all those sorts of things, but yeah. Old school, just the basics are just what the hobby is built on, really. Is it possible to build a coral lounge pool? I don't know what you mean. A coral lounge pool. Don't know what you mean. Explain what you mean. Do you need algae problems to get a tuxedo urchin? No. No, you don't. If your tank is brand new, literally just set it up, I wouldn't bother because they might starve. But if it's a couple of months old, it's probably got algae in there if you've had lights, all that sort of stuff. But no, you don't need an algae problem to have a tuxedo urchin. Like, so in my K tank, for example, I don't have an algae problem at all. I don't even think there's any noticeable algae in there. There's one little tiny patch, that's it. But I would happily, well, I do have an urchin in there. No, you don't. They're just good at dealing with what's it called, algae. Rob, on the Rob, what frozen foods do you tend to feed? I try to buy Ocean Nutrition mysis shrimp, but I often end up buying Gamma mysis shrimp. But Ocean Nutrition is my preference, and I also feed Ocean Nutrition angelfish formula. Every now and then I'll buy fish eggs or lobster eggs if they come into stock, which they don't come up very often. But I tend to stick to those. And at the moment, I'm also adding pellets in the shape of seaweed pellets, Hikari seaweed pellets. And what else am I feeding? I think that's it for the moment. But yeah, angelfish formula because it's got a bit more of a variety of stuff in there. And mysis. How many years have you been in the hobby? Says Yanis K. 10 years. 10 years next month, in fact. I think it was either August or September I started to. A decade. I have to celebrate my 10-year Reef anniversary. Tyler Jacks. You tried Luxtium pucks. You might not be talking to me. No, you might be. Have I tried Luxtium packs for the older Hydra HD or Prime HD models? No. I've never even heard of Luxtium pucks. I presume they're a replacement light puck, but no, I've not. Nathan Cross. Oh, God, I'm missing. There's loads to catch up with and we're already almost an hour in. I won't keep going for too much longer. I might wrap it up. I'll wrap up definitely before 10, maybe 20 minutes. Have you started or had any interest in ORP readings now? As I know, see folks using ozone to get it up or corals know any issues with no. So ORP, everybody who uses ozone, and I now currently use ozone, says you should monitor ORP. I don't, so I'm just doing. This is one of the things where if you're putting something in your tank, you should be able to test for it. If you can't test for it, you shouldn't be putting it in your tank. So really, I should be testing ORP, but I don't. I just have my ozone generator, on for 2 hours a night between like 3 and 5 in the morning. And the tank looks really, really clear, to be fair. But no, I don't do it. You should probably ask someone who would encourage you to do it, though. And you can put it on an ORP controller, but no, I've never done it. I just can't be asked with it. And there are plenty of people who've done it who do it on my method on a timer. That report very good results. I'm sure it's not the best way to do it, but that's the way I do it. Do as I say, not as I do. High calcium levels drop alkalinity because they will precipitate. As that's what okay. Would it work the other way around? I don't know. Why are you trying to work that out? Is that because you've got? I don't understand what you're trying to work out, because the underlying science of the hobby doesn't really matter most of the time. But tell me what you're trying to work out. Maybe it's an explanation of why your parameters are going funny. But if you've got really high, then yeah, they'll precipitate out, and if they're dosing at the same time, they will do. But not if they're just a little bit elevated. I wouldn't have thought. Use one strand of Cheeto. Yeah, okay. You're talking to the other guy. Just make sure you'll go to fast light, not flashlight. Don't know what that means. I have tuxedos. I have a tuxedo urchin in a 375 litre, and I've been thinking about adding another, or maybe two. Is that a bad idea? No, not necessarily. They don't fight. Yeah, cool. EIY Kumar, especially if you've got algae problems. I tried ordering your 3D printed items from Etsy, but it doesn't ship to the country where I live. Tell me what country you live in, and I might add it if I can do. I've had so I currently ship worldwide. So I ship to Australia, to the United States, to Canada. I removed a couple of countries because I had issues with a couple of orders. So I removed France a few months ago because someone tried to buy the Hana alkalinity caddy, which was 10 quid. And when it arrived, they sent it back because they said they thought they were buying the Hana alkalinity checker, which is the thick end of 100 quid, and had two people do the same thing with that exact thing from France. So that must mean that either the translation doesn't come up right or I was doing something wrong. But I will add, I've had a few people message me. Someone messaged me from Italy the other day, and I added Italy. I've added Belgium. So tell me where you are, and I will see if I can do it. It's just basically at the moment I'm kind of dipping my toes in the water. I've ironed out some initial teething problems, which was basically with postage. I charged far too low for postage, and I lost money on a couple of orders. But I've ironed those out, so I'm just going step by step. Tell me where you live, and I will think about it. But I'm trying to keep it really to places that I think are likely to get that I'm not going to have problems with, basically. So America probably fine, Australia fine, etc., etc. Wheelchair Stud, nice name. Picked up some peppermint shrimp to fight up taser based on your recommendation. PSA: cover your overflows, they come in tiny. Found them chilling in my filter within hours. That happened to me with some what are the little tetras, neon tetras, and had a freshwater tank. Pain in the backside. When are you getting a new office chair? Is that because it creaks? So this is new, is the annoying thing. I got this a couple of months ago. I probably just need to oil it. Let's see if I can scroll forward and find some more recent chats. I'm just going to order a bottle of water. Would you mind awfully bringing me a bottle of water? Thank you very much. From the fridge. I'm getting dry mouth. Now my cable is tucked in. Oh, by the way, if anybody wants any YouTube equipment, I've got a load of stuff on. Go and look at my Instagram, and there's a link for it. But I've put a load of stuff on eBay today: camera gear and audio gear. So if you want microphones, camera sliders, those sorts of things, you can go and check out Who's the Duke, WHOSTHEDUK on eBay. Do you have any experience with Samacora? Yeah. Or Porites? Yeah. What's their care level lighting requirement? Low, but pretty solid as far as I can make out. Didn't have any problems with them. I have a Porites at the moment. They're a bit boring, Porites. In my opinion anyway. You might like them, but they're low light, not particularly difficult as far as I can make out. How many fish could you keep in a Red Sea Reefer 170? We currently have 2 clowns, 2 cardinals, 1 goby, and a couple of shrimp and snails. 2 clowns. Forget about inverts when you're talking about bioload. 2 clowns, 2 cardinals, 1 goby. Probably not many more, but you could probably put a couple more in, but not many more. Depends. Tell me what you're thinking of adding, but a couple of more small fish might be okay. You're a bit limited though, because the 170 is quite a small tank, so you don't want to put things like. Well, you could put a wrasse in there. I was going to say you don't want to put things like wrasses in because they swim around a lot. It's not ideal for them, but they'd probably be okay, to be fair. A small wrasse. What are the little? There's a small wrasse that I can't remember what it's called. What's it called? I've got one. Tanaka's pygmy wrasse. Tanaka's wrasse. Can't remember what they're called now. There's a word for them, like a generic word. How much should I spend for a 40-gallon tank? How much should you spend? How much should I spend? As little as possible. Get one secondhand. I don't like just a 40 breeder, so we don't really have those in the UK. So I asked someone in the US, but I don't know. As cheap as possible. Secondhand is probably not a bad idea. You can often get. You don't want like a 10-year-old tank necessarily, but you can often get people fall out of the hobby within the first year all the time. So you can often get 6-month-old tanks really cheap. Where's this water coming? Hang on a second. Water, please. Thank you very much. Thank you, please. She might not have seen her phone. Have you ever used pellet food that claimed to increase fish colours? No, I haven't. No, I haven't. There was a powdered food. Someone told me they swore blind increased coloration in a yellow tang. I can't remember what it's called. It was something weird. But no. I mean, it stands to reason that a good diet for a fish will make it healthier and potentially, therefore, brighter colours. Well, hang on. Laura? Thanks. But no, I haven't. And I think just a varied diet is probably a better thing, to be honest. But no, I haven't. Speaking of urchins, I just thought of a really funny line from The Wire. What's your thought of one in a 12-gallon tank that has a 10-gallon display? Do it. You have a pistol shrimp, doesn't matter. Do it. Is natural ocean water and sand, I don't think you should use, well, maybe people don't, I don't know, is better than the synthetic versions sold in bags. Ooh. Merci bien. I've never used natural seawater, and I personally wouldn't. I wouldn't want to. I just don't trust other people to collect it the way I would want, or to store it in containers that I would be happy with. And sand, I'd be very skeptical of picking up any sand in from a. If you buy it from a place that do it properly, great. But wouldn't go down to your local beach. I think it's illegal actually in many places. So I'd be very cautious of sand. Just one thing, someone mentioned the Essie store, so shameless plug here. I just added today a new thing, and it's a coral plug mount thing. So it's for the corner though. So this is for the corner of your tank. So you stick it there, and then you put a frog plug in the middle there. So I've got the weir box mounts that are just flat. This now goes in the corner of your tank, and they're absolutely wicked. And it frees up coral space, coral real estate. Cool. That is refreshing. Oh, right, like a shallow pond below the. Do you mean like a shallow coral pond? Find someone else who's done it, because that's a bit niche. If it's the trouble, if you've got a massive surface area, below the knee, as in it's low height, so you always see top down. I don't know. I mean, fish would probably be okay in there. You might struggle for flow if you wanted corals. I've not done it. I've not seen it, so it sounds challenging. But see if you can find somebody who's done it, because bound to be people who've done it. Barium, iron, and phosphorus. Okay. So phosphorus is phosphate, basically. 40 litres displacement. Wow, I wouldn't be dosing barium in a tank that small. Iron, I wouldn't necessarily have a problem with. Be very gentle with it, very, very gentle with it, but wouldn't necessarily have a problem with that. But I wouldn't be dosing trace elements in a tank like that personally. Still a massive water change. Hey, right, Prestige, how you doing, mate? Are you feeling better? He had the sniffles, guys. Little sniffles. I think actually was quite unwell. So, but I think he's feeling better now. My action is a bit of a pain in the ass. They do move corals around if you don't like nail them down, basically. But they're well worth the trade-off, the pain. Do you recommend I buy a sump for a 40 gallon? Sump's always good because they're a place to hide filtration. 40 gallons, yeah, something it would be better if you can have it, but you can run it perfectly fine without it. It just might look a bit ugly with a hang on the back filter or whatever. And it reduces your options because you can't put a refugium in so easily, you can't put a skimmer in so easily, etc., etc. So, yeah. Oh, Rev said, I had 10 grand in coral death due to a disease called stony coral tissue loss disease. LPS, SPS, and anemones and clams all dead. I struggled with it for 2 years, so I finally dosed amoxicillin, which is what's it called? Antibiotic. I've taken amoxicillin myself before, as I'm sure many of you guys have. Sounds nasty. What else have we got going on? Was right by Ryan's today, gutted that he is poorly, otherwise I would have called in to say hi. Possum wrasse, that's it. Yeah, thank you. Pygmy pink streak wrasse, no, it's a possum wrasse. Reef Talk. Enjoy the Sunday streams with Ryan, but this shows how much people want to interact with you both more. It just doesn't work when it's like a one-on-one Q&A session like this. It's wicked, but the whole point of I think what 99% of people tune in on the stream is for me and Ryan to have a bit of banter. So it just doesn't work. But when it's like this, it's wicked. There are other streams that do that really well. The Friday night live stream does that really well. But we just don't do that. So it's cool like this to do one like this occasionally, though, when I can. So lots of well wishes for Ryan. Hope you're feeling well. A small wrasse would be fun. Yes. What 3D printer? This is Steve. You keep asking me questions about nerdy stuff that I love talking about that no one else wants to listen to. So I have 2 Bamboo Lab P1Ss. I did have Prusas before. I had a Prusa Mini, 2 Prusa Minis and a Prusa Mark IV. But the Bamboo Lab is just amazing. It's really, really good. Have you ever tried keeping tridacna clams? Yes, I'm looking forward to keeping one. Maximas I've found difficult, probably because I put it in too low light. Dorasa, very, very easy. I've never had problems with Durasas. I've lost a couple of Maximas, but Durasas they don't mind low light. So yeah, Durasas are the easy ways to go. Kane, is that the cat? No, it is not. Kane Chand, in regards to your Etsy store, I would buy something so I can angle my Nero 3s. So I don't sell them. What's the place called? Reefparts.co.uk. I'm going to give him a shout out if it's the one. .co.uk. So I don't sell anything with magnets. That's like, so these coral mounts that I do, these are, you silicon them to the glass. I don't trust anything unless it's like a Tunzi magnet or a proper aquarium company magnet. I don't trust anything that that comes with 3D printed stuff that comes with magnets. I think there's a reasonable chance that that over time the magnet will be exposed to salt water and will be leached, because I don't trust small companies. Like, I wouldn't trust myself to enclose the magnets properly. So I don't trust most other people. It is Reef Parts, right? So present, share screen, entire screen 2, share. Right, reefparts.co.uk. So I have, with that being said, these have magnets in them, and I've had them in my tank for, I don't know, 2 years, maybe even a little bit longer. They're fantastic. These are the things that you're talking about. I think they're 20 quid. Yeah, they're 20 quid. You can't see the actual thing, but you get the idea. They're wicked. They're really, really good. And they angle your AI Nero 3 or 5 at 45 degrees, which is cool. I have one in that tank behind me, so I'm going to do an update on that next Friday probably, so you might be able to see it in the video. But they're really, really good. Reefparts.co.uk, 20 quid. But I will never make anything with magnets, or I certainly wouldn't plan on doing so. If I do, then I've managed to figure out a way to make it safe. I just wouldn't like the idea of me making something, you buying it, and then it goes wrong and rusts and kills your corals. That would suck. Sean Reed, I have a 50-gallon system, but don't have anything in the sump other than bioballs, heater, filter sock, return pump. What would you add next? I mean, if it's working fine, nothing. If you want to add Skimmer is probably the short answer. So skimmers are really, really good generally. They're just good generally. What are they called? Filter rollers I really like as well, because they polish your water and they do have some effect on nutrients. Phosphate reactor, if you've got high phosphates, they're really, really good. The Nios torque reactor is really, really, really good. Keep meaning to do a review on that, but just haven't got around to it. So don't know. Let me scroll down a little bit further. Just ordered a couple of, we're nearly at the end actually, which is good, because I'm going to I am going to wrap it up actually. So if you've got any last minute questions, chuck them down there and I'll answer them. Otherwise, I'm going to wrap things up. Just ordered a couple of corner pieces there now. This will solve the problem I'm having with aggressive cold in a small tank. Cool. I'll be putting them in my Red Sea Reef S850 soon. In my that will be dispatched tomorrow, by the way. In my 375 litre, I have no algae problem, and my nitrate is 2 parts per million, but my phosphate is at 0.03. And I've been struggling with growth. All my corals are low phosphate a problem. What corals? If it's SPS, that's perfect. If it's LPS, you might want to feed a little bit more and get your nutrients up a bit. But yeah, that's a nice problem to have, because you can bump it up relatively easy by feeding more. If that doesn't work, you can dose it, worst case scenario, but you can feed more and get that up easily. Or you might have a ton of filtration in there and just take a bit of filtration out. I get asked this question quite a lot. Agnes Alex says, do you sell STL files for your designs? No, I don't. Just because as soon as I sell it, it's out there, and I've lost anybody else could sell it, basically. So no, I never do. Yanis. I have a pair of clowns, a fire goby. What's a fire goby? Fire goby and a starry blending in a 30-gallon all-in-one. Do you reckon I'd be able to add an orchid dotty back too? Yeah, maybe. Adding fish depends on territory, nutrients, aggression. Orchid dotty backs, I think they're the ones with a little purple streak across their eyes, right? They're not aggressive. You're probably pushing it there. 30. No, you'll be all right. I think you'd be all right. Yeah, you'd probably be all right. But I wouldn't go too crazy. And if you get another one, make it a small fish. But as long as all your nutrients are okay, you haven't got aggression issues, and you've got good territory, then you're done. Where do you sell corals? I rarely sell corals, but when I do, it's on Ultimate Reef in the classified section. That's at ultimatereef.net. It's a place I buy a lot of corals from anyway, from other hobbyists. So you should go there and check out other people's corals anyway. But I very rarely do, and I never announce it. I wake up one morning and decide to sell some corals. So I did this weekend. So yeah, that's where I do though. The light on the tank looks really dim. Have I changed my settings or something? Because the light isn't actually that dim. I suppose it is fairly dim. Kane-chan, my tank is a small all-in-one tank with high phosphate. Is it worth swapping my filter sponge with a phosphate reactor? Yeah, phosphate reactor will bring down phosphate. Yeah. Yeah. If it's a small tank, water changes are the best way to bring that down rather than messing around with filtration. Anyway, so I think we are done. I've reached the end of the questions, so I'm going to wrap up straight away before more questions come in. Thank you all for joining for the impromptu chat, and we will be back with a bit of luck if Ryan's feeling better with the Prestige Reef Talk Show. Cheers, guys. Catch you then.